Welcome to another CHRO conversation, presented by the Center for Executive Succession here at the Darla Moore School of Business. I'm your host, Anthony Nyberg, and today we're joined with Lucien Alziari, the head of HR at Maersk Group. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
So much of the conversation has been about how HR has become more strategic over the recent years. Can you talk about some particular strategic challenges perhaps that you've been involved with as a company and how HR can help address those questions?
Well, I think companies have figured out progressively that there are just fewer ways in which you can compete and win. And eventually you keep on coming back to this area of sort of talent and the people capabilities and how they can actually really make a difference between being an average company and being a winning company within your particular industry. So that has demanded senior HR leaders to be much more business leaders. I think that's a trend that I think has been very healthy. I think the expectation is really good for us. And I think the very, very best chief HR officers, when you meet them, you're really meeting a business leader who is passionate about helping the business win, who happens to bring a particular skill set in organization and principally talent management, but their orientation is around how the business wins.
So that sounds like a couple of different functions to me. Like one is helping develop talent throughout the organization, and the other is really helping organizations think about how to compete with that talent in the marketplace. Is that?
Yeah, for me, the process that I try and work through in any business is what's the strategy. So that's basically where are we going to play and why are we going to win. But then a very important step around capabilities. So in order for that strategy to be realized, what does the company need to be really, really good at that would distinguish it versus its competitors? And then the capabilities really define what talent means within that individual business. So one of my sort of strong beliefs is talent is not a generic. Talent is very much business defined, strategically defined. And so what we define as talent in one of our businesses within the Maersk Group would actually be quite different in the container shipping business than it would be in the upstream oil business. And once you say it, it kind of intuitively makes sense. But I don't think that's where a lot of people start. It's sort of they believe talent is a generic. And I think once you can bring to the business discussion a very nuanced and strategically determined view of what talent is, it really makes sense and people will get behind it. And then you can drive all sorts of change through a company.
So then part of your role must then be both listening really well to all of the business functions and trying to help them understand how they can compete better through talent? So.
Sure. I think to start with, you have to have an inherent sort of curiosity about business. So what you have to develop your own point of view on what is going to make this business win and sort of bring that to the discussion. And then you have to be a very, very good listener so that you can have other good minds around the table sort of, kick the tires on your sort of going in proposition. And when I went to Maersk, I fundamentally changed my point of view through those discussions because I was hoping that in a conglomerate that the answer on talent in every business was going to be the same because then you can move talent across every business. Once we really got to a very informed discussion on business by business, what makes the business win, you could see where are the areas where talent is something that can be shared and where is it very, very business specific. And so you have to have both a point of view, but also the intellectual honesty to sort of challenge that point of view with real life experience as well.
So that sounds like a really unique set of skills that you're bringing and that presumably HR leaders who are going to try to replicate this in the future will need to have. Can you talk a little bit about what the challenges are as far as finding HR talent with these kind of skills and how that might be different than days of old?
Well, I think if you select people with the right raw ingredients, and I would describe that as um, smart enough. Intellect plays a part. It doesn't answer all of it, but you need to have enough in order to be effective. Um, but I think more important is sort of curiosity about, particularly about business and the interaction between business and people, and what is that best fit. Um, and then if you can help people develop through the right kind of experiences, if they have those raw ingredients, you're just giving them a bigger and bigger stage each time to make an impact. But fundamentally, HR people need to feel sort of deep in here that they're business people first and that they're HR people second.
I like how you phrase that. Um, so Maersk seems to be going through kind of an interesting time right now.
Yep.
Can you describe HR's role in how you keep the culture going, how you keep people motivated when there's reorganizations going on, and how you keep everyone on the same page when it seems like from the outside it would be easy for that to not be as consistent as maybe it had been.
Yeah, so I think in reality, what happens when you go through these big, fundamental soul searching about, in our case, what is the future of the conglomerate structure, which businesses belong within the conglomerate structure. Um, that work is done by a relatively few people. And so on that side, you just need to set up the time and the space and the expectations around, when do we need an answer and what are the most fundamental questions. It's easy for the rest of our 90,000 employees to get very distracted by that. And that doesn't help. Doesn't help them, doesn't help us. And so for everybody else, we're very much sort of promoting this is business as usual. Our biggest contribution to the company is delivering on the commitments like we always do. And I think in times of uncertainty, what I've learned over time is obviously all of the truths about communicate, they're all true. So just keep on doing it. Even if you have no news to share, just share that this is the process we're going through. Here's when you can expect the next set of answers. When you get to an answer on here's where we're going, we have to be able to say, of course, from a shareholder perspective, here's why this makes sense. But from an employee perspective, here's why this makes sense. And we have to be able to excite employees as much about this picture as we do anybody else. So each individual needs to look at this and say, this is a place where I can continue to have a great career. I can achieve my own set of dreams. I can develop. I'll work with smart people, be challenged. And then along the way, particularly where people are uncertain, I've also found that being very clear about short-term performance expectations so that you keep people very, very focused on things that are within their power to control is very, very helpful to keep people sort of in the groove.
So this sounds like you had talked about the need for curiosity and really understanding the business case. Yeah. This sounds like another critical HR role, in this case, communicating and keeping employees on the same domain. Is this, in fact, something that HR needs to own?
I've gone back and forth on it. I think what HR needs to own is the understanding of the employees. Now, whether you do that through broad-scale engagement surveys or just being in touch with your people or getting feedback from the organization, however that makes sense within your own organization, but we need to be able to articulate, here are the needs and the questions of employees. Sometimes I think communications professionals are actually better at turning that into particular messaging. But I think we own the content of that, the delivery of that. Sometimes there are people that know more about that than I do.